Hello, little rats. Welcome back to the Rat Diaries podcast. Hey, welcome back. I'm your host, Rachael Weber. It is a beautiful Tuesday, February 25th, reporting to you live, baby. It's a live show. No, it's not a live show, but actually, fun fact, I am recording this literally on Tuesday, February 25th. So, this is how I'm feeling. This is who I am, and this is me. I feel so real in this moment. I'm just coming at you live. It's too good. Well, welcome back to another episode. Good morning. How we doing? How we feeling? I can't believe February is almost over. How is it March? It's basically March. I also kind of hate with a capital, hate, double hate, loathe entirely, Marks. That's my Grinch impression. I hate, loathe entirely how short the month of February is, because even though it's just a few extra days that we don't get at the end of the month, it honestly makes a difference. It really does. This month feels like it was 2 weeks long. Oh my God. I don't know. It's just kind of unsettling. What's that whole thing about leap years or whatever with February? Honestly, that confuses me. But you know what's also confusing to me is why is a leap year even a thing? And why is it that February is shorter? I don't know if I'm just stupid and uneducated, but I was thinking about this today. Couldn't we time is made up. Time and dates are just made up. They're not real. We've just, as humans, as these little beings that sprouted on this planet Earth that we have no idea how we got here or why we're here, we made up this concept of time and a date in the year, and there's 365 days in the year. Why is that? Why couldn't we just have made every month 30 days? And why do we all have, I don't know. It just doesn't really make sense to me. I totally get the seasons, how it's winter, spring, summer, or fall. One question I do have, if it's cold, oh my God, I'm going to sound so stupid right now. Okay, hear me out. So you know how on opposite sides of the equator, it is, oh my God, I think I'm about to sound really stupid right now, but I don't really care. This is a safe space. On the other sides of the equator, that's the different seasons. So when it's winter here, when it's cold here, in Australia, for instance, it's hot there. Do they still call that their winter? Because during our winter, if let's say okay, because our winter is, in the later months of the year. So what do they call their later months of the year? Do they call that summer? But then what if we're releasing a fall fashion line, and a lot of fashion stems from the US in our seasons. So if we're releasing a fall or winter fashion line, what do they do in Australia? Do they call that their fall and winter fashion, or their fall and winter fashion line, and then they just wear bikinis? My brain is really working overtime right now. What is do they call their winter? I don't know. Because they have Christmas when it's hot outside. But is that just their winter? I could totally look this up, given that there's literally 5 computers in front of me right now. I shit you not. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of devices in front of me that I could easily look this up on. But I love this element of mystery. Let's just pretend that we don't have ChatGPT and the internet. I better go to the library. Yeah, I'm going to save that for a trip to the library to figure that one out. I like living in this mystery, It's a good question. Somebody's out there this girl is, I probably just lost a few listeners. Oh my God, I didn't realize we were signing up for the world's dumbest girl to host this podcast, and I'm gonna have to listen to her. Don't worry. Hopefully we won't have any other uneducated questions of mine coming on here that, I don't know. But anyways, so yeah, just some food for thought there. Give that one a good hard think. So February's been a long month, but it's been a very productive month for me. It's been a short, long month. It's been a very short month, but it's a very, very productive, very robust on my end. I've gotten a lot done. This past weekend, I actually got Legree certified. Yay. Yes. Thank you for the applause. Thank you. So if you guys don't know what Legree is, it is a method of physical fitness and training. So it's like one of these, it's on something called a megaformer, which is different than Pilates. Legree and Pilates are not the same. I would like to say that very loud and clear. Not the same. So Legree is a lot heavier. It's cardiovascular. Oh my God, I should be like be able to rattle this off. I was in a 3-day training and it was literally 8 hours or 6 hours a day for 3 days straight. It was, okay, hold on. If my master trainer was listening to this, she'd be like, what is Legree, Rachel? Come on, spit it out, baby. All right. Yeah, after paying $2,200, I should be able to just rattle this off real quick. So it's high intensity, low impact workout. It's muscular endurance, so time under tension. So you do all of your moves very, very slowly. A lot of anatomy comes into play with like how to get into these different moves that you do on this machine, the Megaformer. And it's a strength-based workout, but it's also like it gets your heart rate up, which is really cool. And what I love about it, because you actually do sweat and you actually shake when you start to get into these different moves and you get stronger and stronger. And the shake is what you're there for. And I'm obsessed with it. Like I swear by Legree. The second I started doing it, I was like, oh my God, like I'm obsessed. And I love it because I genuinely like this sounds, this doesn't sound like, I don't know. This sounds like I'm self-obsessed and like with my image and whatever, but I just love how I had abs after 2 weeks of doing it. Like instantly I had results. It was crazy. Oh my God, it's getting really hot in here. Hold on. I'm going to like take off my sweatshirt. Oh my God, that's better. I'm like, now I'm just in a sports bra and this podcast episode is literally going on YouTube, but whatever. Maybe I'll get more views. Look at my body. No, actually don't. I don't know if you can quite see the results of the Legree. You guys, I take my sweatshirt off and everybody's like, oh, that doesn't look like results. Oh yeah, it's the summer months are approaching rapidly here in Arizona. I need to get a new air conditioner. Oh my God. I need to buy a new air conditioner for my condo right now. And it's like eating me alive because that's going to be about $12,000. And because my AC like literally broke after the summer. And yeah, I'm holding on to my panties for that one. But anyways, so that's another reason why I got Legree certified. We got to make that bank. We got to get that check, baby. So yeah, so I did the training. Now I have to go through like a 6 to 8 week mentor program through the studio that I work at. So I teach at a place called Body Politic, and it's a studio that does Versa Climber classes. So it's like that little like 80s looking workout, like kind of, it's almost like a Stairmaster, but you move your arms and legs. And then they also do Legree. And so I teach the Versa Climber classes and it's all cardio. I effing love it. It's only 30 minutes. It's the best. You should come to my classes. And yeah, so now I'm going to do Legree and I'm so excited. It's going to be so fun. And yeah, it was honestly on my vision board for this year to get Legree certified. And I'm so proud of myself for crossing that one off the list. It was definitely an investment. It's not cheap to get Legree certified. It's about $2,200 and it's a huge investment of your time as well. But I feel so passionate about it. And I love that I now have some sort of like education around this like physical activity that I'm going to be teaching people, because you learn so much about the human body and the anatomy and like, you know, what muscles are getting engaged during certain exercises and maybe why somebody has like a certain pain somewhere, that you can actually apply to things outside of just like your day-to-day life. Honestly, my master trainer that trained me, her name is Amy Teeter. She would have been a great person to get on a podcast. That would have been fun. She actually like totally tweaked my form this weekend on like a certain move in Legree that genuinely has changed my life. Like so you have these muscles on your back called, oh my God, they're called a QL, and that's the abbreviation. Hold on. It's quadrilateral QL stand for? Okay, hold on. It is quadrilateral laborum muscle. So it's a part of the muscles in the lower back that support your spine and help with your movement. And so I have a tendency, and lots of women have a tendency, to really engage these and light them up when I shouldn't be using them. And it's because a lot of women, I talk about my German hips on here. I've got those German hips, baby. So because my hips are larger, actually Athena, who works at Body Politic, I was talking to her about this issue I've had. So because my hips are a little bit like larger and wider, she told me that I actually have a larger angle, a QL angle. So I tend to like, it's easier for me to light up my QLs when I should be using like my obliques or my glutes or whatever. And I've been having that pain for a long time, just like in my lower back. It felt like, I don't know. And Amy, my master trainer in Legree this weekend, she tweaked my form in something and she taught me something about my body where I just like need to slightly tuck my pelvis under because mine naturally flares out and get rid of that small little arch in my back. And then I kept like shortening my QLs, meaning like scrunching them to the side and kind of like engaging them in a weird way when I would do certain movements, but just ever so slightly. And she showed me how to just like not pike my hip up to the side and just be more like aware about like where my range of motion is. Like I should shorten my range of motion during squats in Legree and outside of Legree. And I'm actually bamboozled. Like I can feel a difference. It's crazy. I'm like, oh my God, that changed my life. I need to message her and tell her that because yeah, that was a huge game changer for me. Maybe I'll get her on here. Maybe I'll interview her on the pod. That'd be kind of fun. So yeah, that's what I did this weekend. We love that. That's my little update. But today, the real reason, what else? I also did something else. I got new pics taken for my podcast. I know. Thank you, studio audience. I know. Give it up. Give it up. One of my good gal friends, Alicia, she's a very talented professional photographer. She's expanding her branding business. So if you need any branding photography, hit her up, Alicia Nicole Photography. Or is it Alicia Creative or I can't remember. I'll just DM me and I'll send you her deets. She's an amazing, such a talented photographer. She has such a vision. She's like a real photographer. I feel like there's a lot of like photographer posers out there. Like everybody thinks the second they get a nice camera, they're like literally a photographer. And that is not the case with Alicia. She is so talented. She's so experienced. She's been doing this for years and years and years. This is her main source of income. This is like her business. So she took my photos this weekend. I rented a studio. We had such a good time and I can't wait to drop them. I'm going to change my cover to one of the new pictures that she took of me. I'm just so excited to share those with you. So keep an eye out on my Insta because I'm going to post them and you're going to love them. All right. So really what I wanted to get into today for today's episode, I want to talk about the Unwell network, Alex Cooper's podcast network, and all of the drama and issues and fails that have, in my opinion, gone on regarding that network. So I've been kind of sitting on this one as a topic. When Alex Cooper, so she is the host of a podcast called Call Her Daddy, if you're not familiar. I'm sure a large majority of my listeners are familiar with the podcast Call Her Daddy. So she started this podcast and she launched it originally with one of her, like, I guess it wasn't like her best friend, but just with this other gal that they became close. Her name was Sophia Franklin. They launched this podcast. Basically, long story short, so the podcast started as like primarily like it was all about sex. It was all about like giving blowjobs and just, it was it was the first kind of podcast that was super explicit and just talking to women about like how to basically like better serve a man in the bedroom. And they told crazy stories on there, whatever, gave crazy tips. And that ultimately made them go viral because there was no explicit content out there that was like that. And this is before TikTok. This is before Instagram was a huge thing. Instagram was kind of popular, but like we weren't really getting influenced with advertisements. Like I felt like this podcast genuinely just blew up because of the content that they were putting out there. And then basically, long story short, they had a falling out, her and Sophia, and then Alex ultimately got the podcast and she really ran with it. And she was originally had the podcast on Barstool on their podcast network. And then she took it off of that and she started like her own like podcast by herself. So she was, hosting it and producing it all by herself. No money was going to Barstool anymore. And then she really started to like take a turn with the podcast. And I just so loved that for her. I loved that journey for her. I thought that was amazing that she was able to just like pivot and really take control of something. And like, I don't know the story behind her and Sophia, whatever, but I thought that I was really excited for her. I was, because she was breaking off and starting her own new platform and building her own kind of like her own little thing by herself. And so she really built this podcast up, and she got away from all these sex topics and all these like, profound, explicit discussions that she was originally sharing as content on the podcast. And she started to shift more towards content that was centered around, interviewing guests and celebrities out in the industry, and like, like people like John Mayer and Amy Schumer and, Chelsea Handler, lots of like Miley Cyrus. That was her first interview. That interview was terrible, but like whatever, it was her first guest interview. And she really got away from that. And I love that, because I was like, wow, she's really growing and she's finding her new niche, which is interviewing. And I really love her interviews. And I feel like the way that she interviews people, especially that are of, they are someone that's in the spotlight and they have a large following, and some of these people, not a lot of them really even do interviews. I thought that she really created a space where they felt comfortable to open up and talk to her about certain things that they have never said anywhere else. And I don't know, I just really liked it. So, that was going really well. And then all of a sudden she shares that she is launching the Unwell network. So this is where it all goes downhill, in my opinion. And by the way, to give my certifications and qualifications, so I would like to go give a little backstory about myself. So I have been in marketing. I have worked in marketing professionally for what I would call professionally 6 years, but I have been a videographer, and I studied broadcast journalism in high school. I also did that in college. That was my major. I've like done so much video creation, content creation. I've been doing that ever since I was like 15 years old. And then honestly, before that, as a child, I was creating videos and just like, messing around. But I also had so I know that my podcast is new, and I'm about to comment on somebody's podcast as if like I'm some famous podcaster, but I've actually been podcasting since 2021. So at my last job I had in corporate America, the one that I'm prior to the one that I'm in now, I actually had a supply chain podcast. I know. Supply chain podcast. Yes. So that was interesting, but I'm just trying to give my credentials and now I'm the director of marketing for a material handling company, and, which is, it's not as fun and sexy as some other types of social media and marketing that I could be doing. But then I also manage Body Politics, so the studio I work at. I manage their social media and content creation, and I'm helping with like, public relations and like helping them open their new studio and promote that. And so I have some credentials here. Okay. I have some experience, and this is why I'm going to comment on it, because I have some thoughts. And I also like, these are all my opinions. And if you think something else and I'm totally wrong, I'm sorry. I'm just sharing what I've observed and where I think it all went wrong with the Unwell network and how it launched. So as I mentioned, I felt like Alex Cooper was really doing a great thing for a second when she launched Call Her Daddy solely as the host. She was often doing her own thing. Then she announces that she's starting this new network called the Unwell network. And so the Unwell network, basically she is building out her own podcast network. If you're not familiar with like what that means, basically her podcast was hosted by like Barstool. So they produced her show and like put it out there. So basically now she's creating her own network to where she has like her own podcast. She has other podcasters in her network. So she definitely will make money off of those people doing well, but she's giving them a platform to give them more exposure and whatnot. But the only thing, the first thing that I think it went wrong. So here I have some quick highlighted facts that I want to get into, or just opinions about the network. And then I'm going to go into the details. So I was doing a little bit of research, and I was trying to see why, like, what was the purpose of the Unwell network? I was trying to figure out when she actually started this podcast, like when she actually founded it. She publicly launched that it was happening on April in 2023. And it's not public knowledge when she actually started working on the concept. But in my opinion, I swear that, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she turned it around in 1 year from concept to reality, because it just all feels very rushed. I feel like she's really trying to force growth at a very rapid speed, in my opinion. And it doesn't feel very thoughtful. Like the creators that are coming onto this that have a podcast, nothing feels like very thoughtful or aligned with like where she was originally taking her podcast, Call Her Daddy. And in my opinion, a lot of these hosts that she's bringing on to have their own podcast are not qualified podcast hosts. And like, again, who am I to judge? Because I'm also not, a podcast expert, but like, I just, as a listener, as a consumer of podcasts on a regular basis, and just the types of media I consume, I want to go on there and hear like an organized podcast. I want to go on and like understand the objectives of what I'm about to listen to. Like, I don't just have endless amounts of time. Like, if I'm consuming media, I want it to be purposeful and I want to be able to get something out of it. That's just my opinion. I am 27 years old, so I am a Gen Z, but I'm a later Gen Z. And, I don't know. I'm not just like on there to like have, fill the blank space. Like producing a podcast episode is a lot harder than people think. Like I put a lot of preparation into preparing for these podcasts, lots of effort. I have to block out everything I'm going to say because I'm not trying to waste people's time. Okay. So that's just my moral of the story. And when you don't do that, when you don't put some thought around your episodes, it's like, what's the point? Like you can't just get on here and talk and like think that everybody's going to love you. Like you need to have some structure to your episodes. So I've just seen examples of hosts on her network that have their own podcast where I'm just like, did this person even like prepare for this? Like I've heard interviews like Avery, I'll get into Avery Woods, but Avery Woods has her own podcast on there called Cheers, which by the way, stupid effing name, like Cheers. Come on. And she's an influencer that got famous on TikTok. And she recently interviewed Harry Jowsey, which don't worry, we will get into that. She recently interviewed somebody and I could tell she didn't prepare for it at all because she asked her guest about his family and she somehow got on the topic of his dad. And she didn't know that his dad literally died 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, girl, like that is probably the first thing that you should have known. Like, did you even read? I don't know. That's what infuriates me. But okay. So yeah, I just felt like this network feels very, very rushed. And so when I went to look back and research what the purpose of the Unwell network was from Alex Cooper's perspective. So in a lot of her press and her media, like announcements, if you will, she emphasized that the Unwell network is designed to resonate with the Gen Z audience by offering content that reflects their unique experiences and challenges. She also highlighted the importance of authenticity and relatability. Okay, I want you to remember all these things as I'm describing what she says the Unwell network is. Hold on, let me find where I was. By offering content that reflects their unique experiences and challenges. And wait, hold on. Let me start from the beginning. Welcome to me. This is me. Okay. Alex Cooper has emphasized that the Unwell network is designed to resonate with the Gen Z audience by offering content that reflects their unique experiences and challenges. She has highlighted the importance of authenticity and relatability, aiming to create a platform where young creators can share their stories and perspectives. Cooper's approach includes collaborating with influencers like Alex Earl and Madeline Argy, who are known for their genuine engagement with followers. So those two were the first two podcasts that she brought onto her network. And then she said that her strategy underscores her commitment to providing content that is both relevant and, wait for this, empowering for the younger generation. Okay. Empowering. Oh my God. Empowering. So first of all, I would like to get into, where do I even begin? Okay. So that's your little background. Well, let me go back to where I was first starting off. So, oh my God. So this whole network, it all feels rushed, and I'm going to get back to this whole relatable, empowering content. So I just felt like this whole network was brought up so quickly. It felt so rushed, and it just genuinely felt like overnight she came up with this idea to have this network, and then like she brings on all these random ass influencers who have never had a platform to speak on like this. Like they've all been famous on TikTok. And it's just so first of all, the name Unwell for the network. I'm not a huge fan of this name, and I'm not really a fan of the meaning behind this name because so she's like, "Oh, we're all unwell." And it's like, well, you know what? Like, fuck you. I'm not unwell. Like, life can be crazy sometimes. And yeah, we can all do some crazy shit. But like, I'm not unwell. And how is that empowering? I guess she's saying like, she's trying to recognize like, oh, it's okay to be unwell and have like these little like oopsies in life because like we're just young and whatever. But this is all specifically created to appeal to the Gen Z like generation. Which number one, Alex isn't even Gen Z, so like stop it. But I think in my opinion, it's promoting this like chaotic, toxic, unhealthy way of life where you're just blacked out drunk, doing crazy shit, and it's all fine because we're all unwell. And like just because you brought all of these like Gen Z influencers on as hosts, does that mean that they are our role models because like because they do all this crazy fucked up shit, we're supposed to do that too? And like their lifestyles, remember how I said she described it as it's supposed to be relatable content to make the Gen Z generation, the younger generation, feel like more empowered? Well, newsflash, all of these Gen Z influencers that she brought on as hosts, their lifestyles are not relatable. So why is she even pretending that she's trying to create relatable Gen Z content when all these influencers that are now on the platform are so out of touch with reality? They're living crazy lives. They have all this money. They're all loaded. Like, I'm sorry, honestly, the one I can probably relate to the most is like Alex Earl. But like Hallie Batchelder, she's like one of her podcasts. She has a podcast called Extra Dirty on the Unwell Network, which by the way, I'm going to get into the names real quick after this point I make, because the names of these podcasts are just they give me a headache. They're awful. And they're so I feel like they literally typed into ChatGPT, like how to make these different names of the podcasts. But anyways, so Hallie Batchelder, she got her own podcast on the Unwell Network, and she's just like this. She's 27. She's, fully funded by her dad. He's some sort of millionaire, maybe billionaire. I have no idea what he does. She is absolutely insane. Like the stuff that she talks about on her podcast is crazy. She's talking about doing drugs all the time. She's talking about having these crazy like sex situations where she's like sleeping with a 55-year-old man when she's 24 or 25. And he's like using these like profound things to have intercourse with her, like inserting other things inside of her that are like not, foreign objects, if you will. And it's honestly like concerning what she says. It's not funny. And she did an interview with Alex Cooper talking about like all these like crazy like sex stories that she had. And honestly, like I was almost worried about her. I was like, are you okay? Like, have you been physically assaulted? That's not unwell, or that's not like unwell to me in the terms of like what Alex Cooper was framing as like what this whole network is supposed to be about. That doesn't relate to me at all. And I don't ever hope to relate to it. And why are we trying to now make that okay for these younger generations that are tuning into this podcast? Like the more we talk about crazy stuff like that, like, and the way that Hallie says these things, she doesn't tell them as like a crazy pastime. She talks about how just like, oh, I'm so crazy. Like I did that. Like, oh, I would do it again. Like 55, 60 is like my ideal age to sleep with somebody. Like that's not a direct quote, but like things like of that nature. And she's always talking about how she's just like blacked or drunk. And like, that's just not a good influence on the younger generation at all. That is because newsflash, that's not a sustainable lifestyle. And also Hallie, she has her entire life funded by her dad. Like we're talking like she goes on vacation in Aspen and she flies all of her friends on a private jet, and then she is out there buying like $5,000 fur coats. Like she literally did like a haul of all the things that she bought when she was on vacation and in Aspen, and she's like literally whipping out this like fur poncho that she bought and whatever, and then she's like, oh my god, my dad's gonna cut my credit card off, whatever. How is that relatable? Going back to the meaning of the Unwell Network about relatable, empowering content. Number one, how is it empowering that she's being basically assaulted and harassed by these old men in the bedroom? And number two, not relatable because I'm not out there buying a $5,000 fur poncho that like she didn't even like when she bought it. It's just, I don't know. It just really upsets me. And it's a terrible example. And like, I can't believe that this podcast network is framing that their content is empowering and relatable. It just makes me sick. But anyways, but going into it, so Alex, she grew this network so quickly. And this is where it all went wrong. Amazing, beautiful things are born from time, patience, effort, and thoughtfulness, like being thoughtful about the things that you produce. Things that aren't thoughtful about this company, about this network. The branding. Oh my God. Did they make that on Canva? No, like the logo is awful. It literally looks like it was made on Canva, and that's like a trendy little font that they're using. It's just going to go out of style in 2 seconds. Boring, lame. The next thing that's not thoughtful, the people that she's bringing on this podcast. She's only selecting these celebrities or these influencers that have now become celebrities in the public eye on TikTok. They've all been trending on TikTok. And she's just, because they have a large following, she just instantly is giving them a platform. Well, I'm sorry, newsflash, some of these idiots don't deserve a platform. I'm sorry, but like, why, what about that party person that's like doing drugs and like staying out late and being crazy? What about them tells you that they need to have their own platform and that they're going to do it well? Like those types of values don't align with getting quality content. And it's just by doing this, I feel like it's just really increasing her margin of error. And a perfect example of that is the Avery Woods situation. So Avery Woods is a TikToker. And so she has a large following on TikTok. She's a little mom influencer, but she's young and she likes to pretend that she's like, you know, older, if you will. But I have nothing against Avery Woods. Like I really don't. A lot of people hate her, and especially hate her right now because I'll get into that situation. I have nothing against Avery Woods. I mean, like, I don't know her, whatever, you know? So she has a big following on TikTok, and she started her own podcast called Cheers, which I wish I could call her and tell her that that's a terrible name. Like, it's not an insult to her. It's just like, come on, like Cheers is so boring. Like you can do better, but whatever. So she started that podcast like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago or something. And then recently she has been brought onto the Unwell Network. And I was actually really excited for her. I'm like, wow, like this is great. Like that's a huge accomplishment to be, you know, to have built this type of podcast where you actually are like now getting a following and you're getting a whole new like platform with so much more exposure, and like somebody of, you know, I guess you could call Alex Cooper like of a high caliber, like, I don't know, professional in the podcast space, is now like seeing you and recognizing that your content should be shared. And so she gets her podcast on the Unwell Network, and she recently did an interview with Harry Jowsey, who's just like this Australian Gen Z. He also has a podcast on the Unwell Network called Boyfriend Material, which is stupid. But anyways, so she gets him as a guest on her podcast, and instantly when I started listening to that, it doesn't sound like her. Like she's interviewing him and she's like talking about how like she's just like always talks about sex on her podcast, and I'm like, but you really don't. She's like interviewing him, asking very explicit questions, and it's just like it was a little bit uncomfortable, talking about like asking him if he would hook up with her if she was, if he was going to go after her, whatever. And then she recently put out this episode with him, and it got a lot of backlash because in it, she made a comment about how she gets all these troll comments on her TikToks, and it's from all these people that are like, they say terrible things about her. It's all of her trolls, if you will. And she made a comment how like those people always tend to have in their bio, like something like, oh, like, Jesus saved me. I am him, like Christians or whatever it is. Christians 4:9, like whatever. And then those people that have like a Bible verse on their bio are like the ones that are actually like trolling her and being like really like, I guess, ungodly, if you will. And so in it, she like basically made a joke about how like God is going to like F them in the butt. That's all I want to say. If they keep talking like that to her, like, so it was from the religious community on TikTok, people really took offense to that because, I mean, she didn't say the word rape, but they kind of like felt like she was insinuating that he was going to rape them. And I don't know. It was definitely an inappropriate comment. But, so that got so much backlash, and she's genuinely like basically she's canceled right now. Like she is under a lot of fire, and now that she has this larger platform and there's so many more eyes on her due to her being a part of the Unwell network. I mean, she's kind of screwed right now. And it's funny because like, of course, Harry hasn't gotten any backlash, but he's not the host of that podcast. And I think people are like, oh, it's always the woman. But it's like, well, no, she is the host of that podcast. Like in many cases, I do think that the woman always gets a lot of backlash as opposed to men. But in this case, the reason that she's getting a backlash is because it's her podcast. And she did make the comment first. And Alex Cooper loves to say, oh, it's always the woman. But like, she needs to take ownership of that because it is her podcast. And she did come out and publicly apologize. But what was interesting is that she said in her apology that that whole episode that she did with Harry was scripted by producers. So they wanted her to ask these like very explicit, profound questions to him. And they wanted it to be very explicit and like, like sexual. And I found that I think that fact really went over people's heads, but I'm like, you guys, this is literally what Alex Cooper wants. Like she wants explicit content because she's gotten so far away from like her podcast used to be that. And I wonder, I'm thinking that, she really brought on all these Gen Zs and she wants that explicit content because she's trying to pivot her own podcast, Call Her Daddy, to be more of a mature audience. And she probably realized how she's not like quote unquote capitalizing, I guess, on that smaller audience that wants to hear the dirtier content like she used to talk about, which is, in my opinion, it's like so not worth it. Like don't force it on your podcast host. But in my opinion, I think it sounds like she is behind the scenes trying to get more back to that, like, gruesome, raunchy stuff. And so that was an interesting point that Avery said, is that it was a scripted episode. Cause I was like, oh my God, I don't think anybody like kind of noticed that. Like this isn't Avery's fault. And why did this all happen? Why did the Avery Woods situation go down? It should have never gone down on the Unwell network. It should have never happened. And here's why. Due to the rapid growth of this network and her and Alex Cooper throwing all of these influencers into this huge spotlight so quickly, she's putting millions of more eyes on these influencers and giving them a platform that is so large. She did it so quickly that she failed to train them. Rapid growth, way too quickly. She failed to have strong supervision of their content. Someone from the Unwell PR team should be reviewing every goddamn episode, every single one. Like Alex has such a huge platform that she's giving these influencers with their podcasts under the Unwell network so many eyes at once, and they aren't ready for it. And I guarantee that the amount of money and time invested in Alex's Call Her Daddy podcast is maybe like double or triple to what she provides her inexperienced new podcast host team members, which is so backwards because Alex is the professional, experienced one here. They need help. They need media training. Like they need they need to have these episodes reviewed like by the PR team. They need to have it like reviewed by like, you know, some sort of like, there needs to be some sort of filtration process of these episodes, because with nowadays, you know, once these podcast hosts on her network, you know, mess up, it's going to have a ripple effect on the rest of the network. And it already is starting to have a ripple effect on Alex Cooper and her brand and her Call Her Daddy podcast. And she's getting a little bit out of hand, and she's not really thinking. And the second that somebody goes viral on TikTok, she's like, yep, you can be on my network. And like, maybe give them like, this needs to be a trial. Like, this needs to be like, what about them outside of their following is so appealing? If one person on TikTok has 5 million, you know, gets like 5 million or 1 million views on a TikTok, and they have millions of followers, why does that automatically qualify them as somebody that should have their own podcast platform? And unfortunately, the reason for her is because money. The world revolves around money. She wants to monetize. She wants to capitalize on that. And I hear you, girl. I hear you. We all want to make a quick check. But at the end of the day, is it really worth it if they're going to screw you over? Is it really worth it if what they do on that network, on their podcast, on their platform is going to then trickle back down to your network and start to just ding your reputation? Like, is it? You know, the risk reward here is not quite balanced. And so, yeah, there's something about Alex's like desire and drive to be, she wants to be Gen Z. Like, she is a Gen Z wannabe. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to get on the Unwell network. I don't want to be a part of that shit. I want my own. I'm going to make my own network. It's going to be called the good I Am Well network. No, it's funny. That'd be funny. But she's just trying to get too niche, and she's losing her, in my opinion, she's losing her millennial listeners through these F-ups. Since the content is so Gen Z correlated, quote unquote, which honestly, I'm kind of offended by. I don't find it Gen Z at all. I'm a Gen Z. I don't relate to any of it, and I don't like any of it. But it's really becoming irrelevant to millennials. And I just don't want to hear people like Hallie talking about these 50-year-old men. It's just gross to me. It's gross. So going back to another point I talked about earlier, another sign that it's rushed is the titles of these podcasts are so bad. Like, the only ones I really like are Madeline Argy's podcast called Pretty Lonesome. And then Owen Thiel, I like his podcast title, In Your Dreams. That's a good one. Like, those are all different. Like, those feel like very creatively charged. But like, Hallie's is Extra Dirty. Avery's is Cheers. Alex Earl is Hot Mess. Good God almighty. Let's talk about Alex Earl. So that's an interesting discussion. So Alex Cooper brought on Alex Earl, who, if you don't know, which you probably all do know, Alex Earl is a famous TikToker, and she has recently blown up, but she is so big now. When she first joined the Unwell network, and she launched her podcast called Hot Mess, because she, like, at first when she joined, she had just graduated college and she was going to all these parties, and she's definitely like a fun gal that's like, she was always drinking and getting crazy. But like, now that she's entered into more of her like professional era, I would say, like, she is an investor in lots of different companies. She was literally in 4 Super Bowl ads, which is crazy. And she's in Sports Illustrated. She's everywhere. She is so much bigger than Alex Cooper, and she's just become like a real like A-list celebrity. But as she entered into the podcast network, Alex Cooper was probably like, oh, hell yeah, like, this is going to be my first, like, this is going to give like OG Call Her Daddy vibes. Like, she's going to come in with like these crazy explicit stories and like crazy party stories, whatever. But I think that Alex Cooper does not love where Alex Earl is going, because Alex Earl is not down to talk about the dirty stuff. She's actually not really like, she has a hot bod and she has like, you know, all of the Botox and like a boob job, but she's not an SLUT. She's not explicit or profound. I actually find her quite relatable and normal. And I think that Alex really wanted her to go down this like dirtier route, and she's kind of Alex Cooper wanted Alex, the other Alex, sorry, very confusing, lots of Alexes, to go down this dirtier route because that's what she wanted. And that, you know, that's why she named the podcast Hot Mess, which when she first came out with that name for Alex Earl's podcast, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no longevity or like that Hot Mess, the title of a podcast, Hot Mess, that is going to have zero brand equity in like, that's just not going to build brand equity. Like, you want to be labeled as a hot mess for your whole life. I was very confused by it. I'm like, there's no like, she's going to want to change the name so quickly because why would you want to be 30 and doing a podcast called Hot Mess? It's just like, it's so stupid. So yeah, it's just interesting. And so what I'm really speculating now is that, so Alex Earl has like over the past year, she has blown up like crazy, out of the water. She's crazy. She's so much more famous than Alex Cooper ever will be. And at the rate that she's going, like this girl, I don't even know what she's going to do, but her dad is her manager and he's a very successful businessman. And this girl's smart and she isn't up to no good. Like she has a good head on her shoulders. She has a good family. She has lots of like a great support system. She has an awesome boyfriend. And like, she's going to go so far. I can't even imagine like where she's going to go. Like, I'm so excited for her. Like genuinely, I'm so excited for her. I'm a huge Alex Earl fan. And she just like, her trajectory is just crazy. And like I'm speculating that she is actually like, so she's kind of, her and Alex Cooper have recently like not been really like seen together or like going to any of like the Unwell like network promotional parties and whatnot, which has been very interesting to me because like Unwell, they hosted like a Super Bowl event and like Alex Cooper was at the Super Bowl. Like she didn't go to the event. She like did her own thing at the Super Bowl. She was like not with any of them. She wasn't hanging out with Alex Cooper. And like meanwhile, Alex Cooper and Hallie Batchelder are like buddied up. And I found all that very interesting. And I was seeing a lot of other videos on TikTok saying the same thing. And so I'm speculating that Alex Cooper already knows that she's outgrown this Unwell network and her podcast. And she has a good podcast. I wouldn't say it's like the best, but I do love like what she's done. And she does keep it like very PG and it's like, it's cute and wholesome. And like, I do feel like I'm just listening to like her and her friends chat and it's kind of fun. Nice little background noise, if you will. But, I already know that she thinks that she's outgrown this network. And I think what she's going to do is ride out her contract with Unwell because it's probably like either 3 to 5 years. And because I'm sure like Alex Cooper is trying to get her to like, she's really hoping that she would take it another direction. And then I think that Alex is going to start her own company. She's going to independently monetize her podcast brand, host it herself, produce it herself, promote it herself. And I don't really see her starting her own network, but I think she will start her own company and it will fall under that. And yeah, I think she doesn't belong there. She doesn't. And I think Madeline RG, the other one that has the podcast, I think she's going to stop doing the podcast after like a few years. I don't think it's really her vibe. She just kind of got famous on TikTok because she was dating Central C and like she is funny and cool, but I don't think that she belongs there. I think maybe she could start something else somewhere else, but I don't really see her relating much to that network because her whole episodes, all of her episodes about her being lonely and like alone and like recently, like I was looking up her podcast today and I was like, what did she even talk about that on there? And her recent episode is called I binge watched a teen drama. And I'm like, see, like, Alex Cooper is wincing at that. She's like, oh, come on, like talk about Central C and how you wish you could F him. And like, I know. So let's see, what are we at? Wow, I've been recording for a while. I went on a huge tangent there. But yeah, that's really just my perspective on this whole Unwell network situation. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, other like, ideas or things that you've seen in the media that you think would be worth just like sharing with me, please let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. I think you can comment on Spotify, right? On an episode. Or you can DM me or text me because you probably have my phone number if you're listening to this. All the homies listen. But yeah, that's just my take on the Unwell network and how it went all wrong. it went all wrong, and I don't foresee this network going too far because it's filled with inexperienced podcast hosts and not much thoughtful, not many intentional decisions were made in the production of this podcast. So yeah, but that's just me and my opinion. And if you disagree, I love that for you. Those are your opinions and they're valid, but mine are too, bitches. All right, team. Well, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Rat Diaries podcast. Make sure to follow me on Spotify, follow me on Apple Podcasts, follow me on YouTube, like and subscribe on YouTube, and let me know if you want to hear anything else on here. If you got any topic suggestions, let me know. I'm here. If you want me to unpack something, if you want me to give my hot take, if you want me to come on here and do some stand-up, y'all let me know. I love doing my country accent. Somebody in my past thought that it was super annoying. It was my ex-boyfriend. He thought it was so annoying when I did this country accent, but I love it. I think I'm good. Sorry, I don't know where that came from, but y'all have a good one. Happy Tuesday. End of the month. Let's go, baby. All right. Thanks for tuning into the Rat Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Rachael Weber, and I will see you next week.